My name is Giles Rice, and I am 58 years old. I had spent weeks rehearsing how I would smile when I saw my daughter walking down the aisle, radiant in her wedding dress, the same way I had once carried her on my shoulders as a little girl when she wore a princess costume for Halloween. I thought this day would be the culmination of everything I had worked for, raising her, protecting her, guiding her after her mother's passing. But nothing prepared me for the sight that greeted me at the entrance of the Fairmont San Francisco that March afternoon. The lobby was alive with music from a string quartet, flowers cascading down crystal stands, guests buzzing with laughter as they made their way toward the reception hall. I was holding a carefully wrapped gift in my hand, a Cartier necklace that I had chosen because it reminded me of her mother's elegance. I wanted my daughter to wear it proudly, a symbol of my blessing on her new life. But then I froze. Right there, positioned like a cruel joke at the entrance doors, was a large black and white photograph of me. My face, enlarged on glossy paper, stared back at me with an expression I hardly recognized. Beneath it, written in elegant calligraphy that must have taken deliberate planning, were the words, "Entry forbidden, by request of the bride and groom." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The gift slipped in my hand, almost tumbling to the marble floor. Guests slowed their steps as they noticed me standing there. Some whispered, others quickly looked away, embarrassed for me. I had been many things in my life: a husband, a father, a professional. But I had never been branded an outcast so publicly, especially not by the one person I loved more than life itself. A security guard approached me gently, his voice formal yet tinged with pity. "Sir, you're not expected here. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." His name tag ripped. My mug of coffee stalled halfway to my lips. Engaged? My little girl who once cried when her bike chain came loose, now flashing a diamond that looked as if it belonged in a magazine. A tall man's face appeared in the frame. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled dark hair, and a smile that seemed almost rehearsed. He introduced himself with polished charm. "I'm Harold Kensington," he said, extending a confident tone even through a video call. "I promise your daughter will be the happiest woman in the world." Something in the way he said it pricked at me, though I forced a smile. Eva couldn't contain herself. "Dad, Harold's a successful cryptocurrency investor. He has all these big plans, NFT ventures, blockchain startups, renewable energy projects." She practically bounced as she spoke, as if reciting from a brochure. Harold chimed in smoothly. "The market's volatile, but I've diversified. Stability matters in the long run." His words flowed like a script he'd delivered before. But his eyes never quite looked into mine. They darted off screen, checking something unseen. His hand rested firmly on Eva's shoulder, thumb tracing slow circles that struck me as more controlling than affectionate. "When's the wedding?" I asked carefully, hoping my unease didn't show. "March 15th, Eva burst out. "I know it's soon, but Harold found this incredible venue, the Fairmont San Francisco. They had a last-minute cancellation. Can you believe it? Just 2 months away." 2 months, I repeated, my voice measured. It felt rushed, too rushed. But Harold's tight smile cut in quickly. "When you know, sir. Life doesn't wait." His confidence was meant to reassure, but it pressed down on me like a weight. He twisted a gold ring on his pinky, a small nervous habit that clashed with the polished performance. After a flurry of talk about flowers, catering, and vendors, Harold was all Ria. "Eva dreams of a fairy tale wedding. The venue requires full payment up front. Flowers, catering, everything. It's more than I can liquidate right now. I was hoping you could help, just until the assets free up." I felt the air leave my chest. "How much?" 50,000. "I'll return every cent by year's end, with interest." He reached into his jacket and slid papers across the table, documents stamped with official-looking seals and dense with legal jargon. They showed accounts supposedly holding more than $2 million in assets. On the surface, it looked convincing. Too convincing. He produced them like a magician revealing a card he'd planted in your pocket. "I love your daughter more than anything," Harold said, his voice almost breaking. "I just want to give her the perfect beginning she deserves." He was good. I'll give him that. Vulnerability in his tone, conviction in his eyes, though they never lingered on mine for long. He twisted that gold pinky ring again and again, betraying nerves he tried so hard to mask. 50,000. It wasn't pocket change, but it wouldn't ruin me either. Still, every fiber of me rebelled against the idea. Margaret's voice echoed in my head. "Never trust the man who comes asking for money before the ink is dry on trust." But then, Eva's face filled my mind. Her excitement on that call, the way her eyes had glowed. Could I really shatter her dream? Could I be the reason her wedding collapsed before it even began? All right, I heard myself say, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. But Eva must never know about this. Relief washed over his features so quickly it almost looked like joy. Of course, it would crush her to think I couldn't provide. I signed the check slowly, my pen heavy in my hand. His eyes tracked every stroke like a hawk watching prey. The second I tore it free, he lunged forward, folding it into his wallet wit. I hadn't been asked what I preferred. Already, Harold was directing the script. The waiter appeared with the bottle, and Harold launched into an elaborate discussion about tannins and oak aging, speaking more to the sommelier than to us. When menus arrived, he barely glanced at mine. The John Dory is exceptional, Mr. Rice, unless, of course, you'd prefer something more traditional. The word landed like a barb. I forced a smile, but my jaw tightened. Eva quickly interjected, squeezing my hand across the table. Dad's actually adventurous. Remember that sushi place in Chinatown? Harold chuckled, not missing a beat. Do you still use a checkbook, Mr. Rice? How authentic. His smile stayed in place, but his eyes glittered with malice. Sometimes the old ways work best, I replied evenly. Of course, he said with mock deference. Though I imagine keeping track of expenses must be challenging without digital banking. He turned to Eva, draping an arm across her shoulders with theatrical concern. Sweetheart, should we explain cryptocurrency basics, or would that be overwhelming? Eva giggled nervously. Actually giggled, like I was some doddering grandfather who needed protecting from the modern world. My chest tightened, not from the insult itself, but from watching my daughter laugh at my expense. Throughout the meal, Harold peppered our conversation with jargon about markets and volatility, occasionally tossing me crumbs. You might find this interesting, Mr. Rice, before diving back into explanations clearly aimed at dazzling Eva. She gazed at him with adoration, nodding, laughing, feeding his performance. By the time dessert arrived, my appetite had vanished. I barely tasted the delicate chocolate souffle placed before me. I was too busy watching Harold, seeing the mask slip in tiny ways. The way his eyes scanned the room for who was watching, the way his hand never released Eva's shoulder as if to stake a claim. When the check came, Harold made a grand show of producing a black American Express card. I reached for my wallet out of habit, but he waved me off dramatically. Please, Mr. Rice, this is my treat. I can certainly afford it. His eyes met mine then, full of quiet cruelty. The message was clear. Your daughter is mine, your money, your presence, your opinions, none of it matters anymore. Outside, I climbed into a taxi while Harold ushered Eva into his sleek Tesla, kissing her forehead with possessive tenderness. As their laughter echoed into the night, a cold realization settled over me. Something was very, very wrong with Harold Kensington. Back at my hotel, sleep was a stranger. I lay in the stiff bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of that dinner, every smirk, every barb, every calculated insult Harold had delivered, with a smile still echoed in my mind. By 11:30 p.m., I gave up on rest altogether and sat at the cramped desk, my shirt wrinkled, my tie hanging loose. The Wi-Fi password was taped to the lamp base. I opened my laptop, staring at the blank search bar like it was a loaded gun. One word typed itself out of my fingers. Harold Kensington. At first, everything seemed tidy. LinkedIn profiles, tech blog mentions, photographs of him at conferences, all perfectly aligned with the story he had told. Too aligned. The polish was too smooth, too consistent, as if the pieces had been placed carefully for anyone who dared to look. I dug deeper, added San Francisco, added fraud. And then, on page 3 of results, something cracked open. A business registration, Kensington Digital Ventures, filed just 6 months earlier. The address, a UPS store. My chest tightened. I scrolled faster, following the trail. Then I found it. Los Angeles County Superior Court, case number CV2047891, defendant, Haro, LD James Kensington. Charges, misappropriation of funds, identity theft, investment fraud. The plaintiff was a woman named Rebecca Martinez, 31. She had given Harold $180,000 for cryptocurrency investments. The photo beside her testimony made my blood freeze. Her smile carried the same trustful innocence I saw in Eva's eyes. I searched harder, Harold Kensington plus victims. Names began to appear like ghosts rising out of the dark. Sarah Chen, 95,000 lost. Jennifer Walsh, 240,000 drained. Each name came with a story. Each story followed the same pattern. Harold meeting women through dating apps, dazzling them with promises of wealth and success, slipping rings on their fingers within months. The engagement was always the hook. Once he had their love, he had their wallets. Then came the photos. I stared at images of Harold with Rebecca at an engagement party, Harold with Sarah at a romantic dinner, Harold with Jennifer, her hand lifted to show off a diamond ring that looked identical to Eva's. My stomach turned. For hours, I printed everything. Court documents, victim testimonies, news articles, photos. The hotel's business center printer screeched and churned until stacks of paper formed a fortress around me. Each page was another nail in the coffin of Harold's fabricated life. He had at least 3 aliases: Kensington, Morrison, Richards, each identity carefully constructed, each one collapsing in a trail of broken women and stolen money. The final document made me sit back in my chair, my hands trembling. It was a psychological profile compiled by the FBI's white-collar crime unit. Their words were chilling. Subject demonstrates narcissistic traits with sociopathic tendencies, skilled at exploiting familial bonds to achieve financial objectives. Familial bonds. The words rang in my ears like a warning siren. He wasn't just targeting Eva's heart. He was targeting me, her family, her safety net, and I had already handed him 50,000 like a fool. By 5 a.m., the desk was covered in evidence. Rebecca had fought him in court for 2 years before finally giving up. Sarah had tried to warn others online until Harold's lawyers silenced her. Jennifer had vanished completely from social media. Each file told the same tragic story. A woman left broken, financially ruined, emotionally scarred. I stared out the hotel window as dawn crept across San Francisco. Commuters bustled below, joggers passed with headphones on, the city waking up to another ordinary day. Yet my world had shifted irreversibly in the night. My daughter was next in line. I arranged the documents into folders, labeling each with the victim's name. Then I placed them neatly in my suitcase. I wasn't sure yet how I would use them, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. At 6:47 a.m., I looked at my phone. Eva would be waking soon, probably humming wedding songs as Harold watched her from across the room, already planning his next move. I had to tell her. I had to risk her anger, her disbelief, her rejection, because the truth was clear now. Harold Kensington wasn't just a bad choice. He was a predator, and if I didn't stop him, my daughter would be his next casualty. Valentine's Day morning brought California sunshine pouring through my hotel window, sharp and unforgiving. The irony wasn't lost on me. While couples everywhere celebrated love, I was preparing to break my daughter's heart with the ugliest truth I had ever uncovered. I spread Harold's history across the desk like a deck of poisoned cards. Court filings, victim testimonies, photos of him sliding identical rings onto different women's fingers. Every page screamed what Eva refused to see. My hands shook as I dialed her number at 7:15 a.m., timing it so Harold might still be in the shower. She answered quickly, her voice bright. "Morning, Dad. Did you sleep well? Wasn't dinner amazing?" Her joy sliced through me. She sounded so innocent, so sure of the future she was about to step into. I gripped Rebecca Martinez's court file for strength. "Ava, I need to tell you something important. Please, sit down." She laughed lightly. "I'm fine. What's wrong? You sound serious." "Sweetheart," I began slowly, "Harold asked me for 50,000 for the wedding. He said his assets were frozen." The silence on the line was immediate, sharp as glass. Then her voice cracked. "You're lying. Harold would have told me." I pressed on, desperate. "Eva, I have the documents. He has a fraud case in Los Angeles. Case number CV2247891. A woman named Rebecca Martinez lost nearly 200,000 to him. There are others, Sarah Chen, Jennifer Walsh." Her breathing grew ragged. In the background, I heard movement, a man's voice, Harold's, soft, calm, asking what was wrong. Eva's voice trembled. "You can't accept that I've grown up. You can't stand that I don't need you anymore. Eva, please, I pleaded. This isn't about control. Look at the evidence. Look at the women. It's the same pattern every time. He lures them in, proposes, drains them. Suddenly the phone changed hands. Harold's smooth tone replaced my daughter's tears. Mr. Rice, these accusations are false. I was cleared of all charges. Your information is outdated. The case is still pending, I snapped. I have the filings. The victims are real. You've been misled by disgruntled business partners, he replied, voice dripping with manufactured calm. Eva knows the truth about my finances. She sees my accounts daily. Behind him, I could hear my daughter crying. His tone shifted, softening like honey poured over poison. Sweetheart, your father is trying to sabotage our happiness. Some parents just can't let go. My blood boiled. Let me talk to my daughter. She's too upset right now, Harold said firmly. You've hurt her enough. Then Eva's voice burst back onto the line, shrill with pain. How could you do this to me? How could you lie just to ruin my wedding? I'm not lying. Eva's voice broke under the weight of it. Eva, there are photos of him with other women, rings just like yours. He's done this before. Enough, she shouted. You can't stand that I found someone who loves me. You taught me to trust my instincts, remember? My instincts tell me Harold is perfect. And you're not welcome at my wedding. Don't come. I mean it. The line went dead. I sat frozen in the silent hotel room, the phone heavy in my hand. Papers lay scattered across the desk. Photographs of women who had once looked at Harold the same way Eva did. My chest ached, not from anger, but from a grief deeper than anything I'd felt since Margaret died. Through the window, I watched couples walk hand in hand to Valentine's brunches, oblivious to the war that had just destroyed the bond between father and daughter. I had promised to send Eva the evidence by email, but my finger hovered uselessly over the keyboard. What good would it do now? She had chosen Harold over me. My protection had become persecution, my love twisted into control. For the first time in 28 years, I was not Eva's safe place. I was the enemy. And somewhere behind her tears, Harold was smiling. March 15th arrived like a date etched in stone. For a month, I had wandered through my Brooklyn apartment like a ghost, replaying every word of that Valentine's Day call. My desk was piled with half-written letters of apology, each one crumpled in shame before I could send it. I had convinced myself that maybe I had been wrong, that the documents were fake, the women liars, my suspicions clouded by jealousy. By noon, I had made my decision. I would go. I would lay down my pride, offer my blessing, and try to rebuild what I had broken with my accusations. I bought a wedding gift that morning, a vintage Cartier necklace wrapped in ivory silk, its diamonds catching the light like stars. I told myself it was a symbol of reconciliation, of a father's love that endured even when misunderstood. The Fairmont San Francisco stood like a palace of marble and crystal, banners announcing the Rice Kensington celebration fluttering in the breeze. I stepped out of the taxi in my best navy suit, the same one I had worn at Eva's college graduation. My heart pounded with a fragile hope as I clutched the silk box. Guests flowed into the hotel, their laughter carried by the notes of a string quartet warming up inside. I recognized faces, Eva's college roommate, my brother Frank, even neighbors from our old home in Queens. For a moment, I thought perhaps things would be all right. Then I saw it. An ornate easel stood beside the entrance, draped with flowers. On it, my own face stared back at me. An enlarged, professional black and white portrait I didn't even know existed. Beneath it, written in elegant calligraphy, were words that struck like a physical blow. Entry forbidden, Giles Rice, by request of the bride and groom. The Cartier box slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the marble floor with a soft thud. Conversations around me slowed. Guests paused, glanced from the poster to me, then quickly looked away, their expressions caught between sympathy and discomfort. A few whispered, their voices slicing through the string music inside. A security guard approached, his voice gentle but firm. "Sir, you're not expected here. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." His name tag read Martinez. He rested a cautious hand on my elbow, not unkindly. Maybe he had daughters of his own. "This is my daughter's wedding," I managed, my voice strangled. "I'm sorry, sir," Martinez said softly. The couple was very specific. Through the glass doors, I caught glimpses of the reception hall, white roses tumbling from crystal vases, tables glittering with china that surely cost more than my rent. My 50,000 check had helped build that dream, and yet I was forbidden to witness it. The humiliation was deliberate. Harold hadn't just taken Eva. He wanted to erase me, to brand me as toxic, to make sure every guest knew I had been cast out. The sign wasn't just exclusion, it was a sentence written in ink and displayed for the world. I bent down, picked up the necklace box, and placed it carefully on the floor beside my own photograph. A final offering, whether she ever chose to open it or not. I straightened my tie, nodded to Martinez, and whispered, "Could you call me a taxi, please?" As I turned away, I looked once more at the man in that photograph, the father who still believed his daughter might forgive him. That man was a fool, but I was no longer him. The taxi wound through downtown San Francisco, but I barely saw the city through the window. My mind replayed the scene outside the Fairmont like a broken reel, my photograph on that easel, the calligraphy spelling out my exile, the guests' pitying stares. Humiliation had burned through me at first, but now it hardened into something colder, sharper. Anger was too small a word. Harold hadn't just won Eva's trust. He had made a spectacle of my ruin. He wanted me erased. But Harold had overlooked one detail. He believed he held all the cards. But one piece of leverage still sat in my hands. The 50,000 check I had written weeks earlier. I leaned forward to the driver. Chase Bank, downtown branch. Hurry, please. The cab pulled up at 4:30 p.m., the sun casting long shadows across the granite facade. Inside, the bank was quiet, staffed by a Saturday skeleton crew waiting to close up. I approached the customer service desk with the same deliberate calm I once used to close million-dollar real estate deals. The young banker looked up politely. Her name tag read, Jessica. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" I placed my driver's license and account documents on the counter, my movements slow, controlled. "I need to cancel a check immediately," she began typing. "Certainly, sir. Can you provide the check number and amount?" Check number 2847, amount 50,000, made out to Harold Kensington. Jessica's eyes flicked up at me, recognition dawning. She had seen this before, betrayed business partners, divorces, family wars that played out in numbers and signatures. "Sir, if the check has already been submitted for payment, this could create issues for the recipient." "That's exactly what I'm interested in," I said flatly. Her expression softened, just slightly. Without another word, she pulled out the stop payment forms. "There's a $35 processing fee. Cancellation takes effect immediately." I signed the forms carefully, my pen steady this time. Each stroke was deliberate, the mirror image of the hesitation I'd felt when writing the original check. Jessica handed me the receipt. "The stop payment is now active, Mr. Rice. Here's your confirmation number." I folded the receipt with precision and slid it into my wallet, placing it beside a photo of Eva from her college graduation. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I couldn't stop the wedding, couldn't erase the humiliation, couldn't undo Eva's choice to believe Harold over me, but I could remove the foundation he stood on. Across the city, the ceremony was beginning. Eva would be walking down the aisle, smiling through tears, Harold beaming at her side. Guests would applaud, vendors would wait for their payments, champagne would be poured. But when the bills came due, when the caterers demanded payment, when the florist presented an invoice, when the band asked to be settled, Harold would find himself exposed. The black Amex he had brandished so confidently would decline, backup cards, maxed out, excuses, unraveling. The man who had made a career of manipulating money was about to discover what happened when the money disappeared. I left the bank into golden California light, the receipt in my pocket feeling like a loaded weapon. I back to my hotel was silent. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt lighter. Sometimes revenge wasn't fire and fury. Sometimes it was subtraction, quietly removing the thing your enemy needed most and watching him collapse under his own weight. And Harold Kensington was about to collapse in front of everyone who mattered. By the time I returned to my hotel room, the wedding at the Fairmont was already in full swing. I sat by the window with a cup of bitter coffee, watching San Francisco's skyline glow in the fading light, my confirmation receipt folded neatly in my wallet like a secret detonator. Somewhere across the city, a string quartet played Pachelbel's Canon, white roses lined the tables, and Eva floated across the ballroom floor, blissfully unaware that her dream was about to fracture. The first text arrived at 7:15 p.m. "Beautiful ceremony. Wish you could have been here. my brother Frank. The second came minutes later from a number I didn't recognize. Payment terminal acting up. Very strange. The third made me smile. Harold looks like he's seen a ghost. I could picture it clearly. Harold striding up to the catering manager, flashing that black Amex card with his trademark confidence. He'd hand it over with a flourish, expecting smooth approval. Instead, the machine would beep its refusal, the sound sharp and merciless. "Mr. Kensington, we'll need immediate payment before we can serve the main course." The caterer's tone professional but unyielding. "There must be some mistake," Harold would insist, his voice tight. He'd swipe again, declined. He'd switch cards, declined again. Backup after backup, each one bouncing back with a metallic beep. The music would falter. Musicians waiting for their payment would whisper to one another, instruments quietly slipping back into their cases. The photographer would lower his camera, apologizing that contracts were required settlement on site. The florist's assistants would begin removing centerpieces, protecting their investment. Guests would murmur, their champagne-fueled laughter dissolving into confusion. The whispers would spread like wildfire. Is something wrong? Why is the caterer arguing? Why are the flowers being taken away? And there, at the center of it all, Harold would sweat. The polished smile cracking, the charm dissolving. He'd glance around for allies, but every eye would be watching him now. Eva's voice would rise above the noise, sharp with panic. "Harold, what's happening? Why is everyone leaving?" "Your father," he'd snap, desperation leaking into his tone. "He did this. He ruined our wedding." But the performance was collapsing faster than he could hold it up, because the truth wasn't on his side anymore. At 8 p.m., my phone lit with call after call. Harold's number, over and over. I let them all ring out, each one dropping into voicemail. His first messages still clung to a veneer of control. "Mr. Rice, there seems to be a banking error. Please call me immediately." By the 15th, the cracks were wide open. "Sir, you must fix this. The wedding is falling apart. Vendors are refusing service. You don't understand. This will destroy everything." By the 37th, the panic was unmistakable. His voice cracked, guests chattering angrily in the background. "Please, I beg you. I can't lose her. Fix this before it's too late." I poured myself a scotch from the minibar, leaned back in the chair, and listened to his carefully curated world collapse in real time. The 40th, the 50th, the 60th call, each one more desperate than the last. Arguments with vendors, the shuffle of guests leaving, the hollow sound of a ballroom being dismantled piece by piece. Then, finally, the 73rd. It wasn't Harold's voice this time. It was Eva's, broken, small, barely audible through her tears. "Dad, please come back. Harold confessed everything." The words struck me harder, too, and any humiliation ever could. Relief and pain tangled inside my chest. My daughter had finally seen the truth, but only after everything had crumbled. The phone vibrated again. Call 74. This time I answered. "Dad?" Her voice was fragile, cracking under the weight of betrayal. "I'm here, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Tell me." "He lied about everything. The money, the women. It's all true. You were right." In the background, Harold's voice shouted, desperate, pleading. She ignored him. "Please," she whispered. "I need you." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tight. The revenge was complete, but the victory was hollow, because behind Harold's destruction lay my daughter's broken heart. The next morning, I sat in my hotel room with the curtains drawn, my phone lying on the nightstand like a wounded animal. 73 missed calls filled the screen, Harold's number dominating, but Eva's face flickering between them like a distress beacon. I scrolled through the voicemails, each one telling the story of a man unraveling. The first still carried that polished confidence. "Mr. Rice, there seems to be a technical glitch. I'll need you to contact the bank immediately." His tone was smooth, controlled, as if charm could bend the system. By voicemail 15, his voice had cracked. "Sir, please, I need you to undo this. The guests are waiting. This is urgent." By number 37, he was openly panicked. I could hear shouting in the background, vendors demanding payment, music faltering, the ballroom dissolving around him. "Please, Mr. Rice, the wedding is falling apart. Don't punish Eva for my mistakes. I can fix this, I swear." I poured myself another scotch, letting the burn coat my throat. Each new message was fuel for the fire I had lit. By voicemail 50, his mask had shattered. "You don't understand. Everything is collapsing. Please, help me. I'll return. In the money. I'll do anything. Just call me back." And then came voicemail 68. Harold's voice was gone. In its place was Eva's. "Dad," her voice was broken, fragile, stripped of every ounce of defiance she had thrown at me on Valentine's Day. "Please come back. Harold confessed everything. You were right." I froze. All the satisfaction I had savored twisted instantly into something heavier, more painful. I had wanted Harold's world to collapse, but hearing my daughter's tears, hearing the crack in her voice that carried both betrayal and shame, hit me like a blow to the chest. The 74th call came at 9:43 p.m. I answered this one. "Dad." Her whisper was barely audible. "He told me everything, about the money, the debts, the other women, all of it." I steadied my voice, though my throat felt raw. "I'll return to San Francisco, but understand me, Eva, I won't pay for anything else. Not after this." There was a pause, then a whisper. "Understood. Just, please come. I need you." When the call ended, I sat in silence. The city outside twinkled with lights, couples dining, taxis honking, life moving on. Inside my pocket, the receipt from Chase Bank still rested like a loaded weapon. I had thought revenge would taste sweet, but in the end, all I felt was the weight of my daughter's broken heart, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she would forgive me. 3 months later, summer heat shimmered off Brooklyn's sidewalks as I heard footsteps climbing the stairs to my apartment. Slow, deliberate, familiar. I looked through the peephole and saw her, Eva, standing there with 2 worn suitcases, her face pale, gaunt, but determined. I opened the door before she could knock. "Dad," her voice broke instantly. "Forgive me. You were right about everything." The words tumbled out as she collapsed into my arms, sobbing the way she had when she was 7 years old and fell off her bicycle. For a long moment, I just held her. My little girl, older now, scarred, but still mine. "Sweetheart," I whispered. "Dee, you're my daughter. We'll get through this together." I guided her inside, settling her on the same leather couch where this nightmare had begun months earlier, with that video call announcing her engagement. The evidence folders were gone now, filed away with the FBI, but Margaret's photograph still rested on the mantel, smiling down at us with that timeless gentleness. Eva wiped her eyes with trembling hands. "He took almost everything, my house, my savings, even my grandmother's jewelry. After the wedding fell apart, he changed. He became desperate. He started forging my signature. He found accounts I didn't even know I had. He drained it all." Her voice cracked under the weight of humiliation. The television murmured in the background. I had left it on out of habit. Then Harold's face filled the screen. Not the polished headshot from his fake profiles, but a mugshot. His hair was unkempt, his confident smile replaced by the hollow stare of a man whose schemes had finally collapsed. "Harold Kensington arrested for fraud in especially large amounts," the anchor said with clinical precision. "Federal investigators allege he targeted wealthy families through romantic relationships, stealing over $2 million across multiple states." Eva's head snapped toward the screen, her lips parted in shock, then tightened with bitter recognition. "They called me yesterday," she whispered. "I'm not his only victim, am I?" "No," I said quietly. "You weren't his first, but you'll be his last." I listed the names I had memorized from those long nights in San Francisco. Rebecca Martinez, Sarah Chen, Jennifer Walsh. He left them all ruined. But the FBI has him now, and this time he won't escape. Her shoulders slumped, as if the weight of denial finally released. Tears slid down her cheeks, not just of grief, but of relief. "I testified before the grand jury last week," she stewed. Aid softly. "They said he's facing 15 to 20 years. I nodded, my hand tightening around hers. "Justice comes slowly, but it comes." For a long while, we sat in silence, just listening to the hum of the city outside. Families finishing dinner, neighbors laughing, children shouting in the summer twilight. Ordinary lives. The kind of simple, honest lives I had once envied when mine had felt like a battlefield. Eva finally looked up at me, her eyes red but steadier. "What now?" I glanced around the apartment that had sheltered me through every sleepless night of this ordeal. Then I looked at her, older, wiser, scarred, but not broken. Now we rebuild, I said firmly. Together. Margaret's photograph caught the fading light from the window, her smile seeming to glow with quiet approval. Sometimes protecting the people you love means making choices that cost you everything in the moment. Sometimes it means standing by while they hate you for telling the truth. But love endures. Truth prevails. And justice, when it finally comes, tastes sweeter than any revenge. Eva leaned against me, her voice small but sure. Thank you, Dad, for not giving up. I kissed the top of her head, the way I used to when she was little. I never will. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt like our family, fractured, battered, but still standing, might finally be whole again.